Hi, everybody. This is 1,149 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And every day getting closer and closer, more and more breaking news. Of course, we have now an alliance inside of Fort Bliss that is giving us intel. We also have a very brave soldier active duty there on Fort Bliss who has made a stand. We don't know him, but he has made a huge stand, and it will definitely affect our son's case, our case, because he has put in a request for a congressional inquiry because of the irregularities, the crimes being committed there on Fort Bliss. There's a lot that is wrong on Fort Bliss. It is just not being commanded properly, and probably for a long time now, it's not being commanded properly. With the barracks flush with weapons, with the barracks marketplaces for illegal drugs, young girls um, being given special passes by Thomas Kane, the DES, the Chief of Security of Fort Bliss, and arranged with, this is from Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz, who was working side by side of Major General Clem Coward at the time, to give these young party girls special passes to come in and party during the COVID lockdown. Um, Also, young 14-year-old girl living in the barracks being prostituted out. We saw that in The Sound of Freedom. It's can be many times a night. Her nights are hell. How did that happen? That a 14-year-old girl has to be living in the barracks with a bunch of men, and who in their right mind thought it was a good idea to make the barracks co-ed for the United States military? Um, in the Army, women are a minority and they need to be protected. They need to be able to live in barracks without fear, not to be subjected to sexual harassment and sexual assault like Asia Graham, right? We know that about Asia Graham and so many more. And so many more. I just posted something about Lavina Johnson. Um, so both not, both RIP, rest in peace. Um, so whose bright idea? The leadership has just gone, um, well, they've betrayed. They've betrayed our military. They've betrayed our soldiers, our service members, and they're making these absolutely insane decisions that harm. They they have set up, and this is a good. I didn't mean this to happen in this live stream. Let me see if I'm live streaming. That I would talk about luring to harm, luring to harm. This is what's going on with our four-star generals. They are enticing to harm. They are enticing to harm. They are luring to harm. What were those words? Directing, ordering to harm. Our volunteer sons and daughters, our service members that volunteered to defend the Constitution, defend the land, defend the people, and now they have to work under leadership that is directing them, luring them, enticing them, ordering them to harm, to their own demise, to their own harm. And that's, I didn't realize that that's how that was going to go today, but there was a lot of truth in there. Now, are there good leaders out there? Yeah, not enough. Not enough. Let me see. Because we do have institutional. It does say I'm live. It does say I'm live. Okay. Because I want to be able to see any comments. Yep. There it is. Okay. I see Anicia. Thank you so much. Prayers for answers and justice for the Halliday family. Okay, so really, this live stream is about Leilani Hart and Belen Rocha. Belen Rocha is starting to come back into the picture. I've, have let's see, something's going on here. Okay, sorry. Um, hmm, is everything okay? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so this live stream is called Leilani Hart and Belen Rocha because um, Belen Rocha, of course, Leilani Hart's in the picture. She's the primary suspect of all of this. And talk about luring, and talk about directing, and talk about enticing, and talk about, her bringing people to harm, creating an environment of harm. Um, and harassment and so that she's a poster girl for that. She's a poster girl for bringing chaos and harm wherever she goes. And it's really sad because there are some people that are aiding and abetting her to, a convicted criminal, a absolutely convicted criminal, twice twice arrested, um, to lead people to more harm, to tamper with witnesses, to obstruct justice, to deny due process. And I've asked her to come on, and I've even asked Belen Rocha to come on because her name is coming back, and we with this um, opportunity to finally uh, get a get some access to records of Richard. We're seeing the unjustified arrests being confirmed. We've known from the very beginning that the arrests, that the retaliation was just that. It was retaliation. That there was no nothing there. And we were like, wait a minute, you asked us, are you ready to hear about your son? And I remember the very first newspaper that was interested was Stars and Stripes. And, it was Hannah's 40,000 share of an Instagram post that got the military to put Richard back on the rolls because remember, they kicked him off. Um, and the Stars and Stripes brought up this very unjustified arrest. And it seems I'm counting probability of 4 unjustified arrests of Richard. Okay? 4 of them. So I'm going to talk about the one that is just, totally confirmed. It was the January 27th, 2020 arrest. We know that through the videos, through Richard's messages, that was after he became a whistleblower. So he was a whistleblower before January 27th, 2020. We have calendars, timelines. It's very important to keep a timeline. It's very important to keep records. It's very important to post them all over the place so you can look at them and things will start clicking. You'll start memorizing things. You'll start getting things. Pieces will come together. And then you can solve a case. Because in Richard's case, the evidence that should be available to everybody has been scrubbed, sanitized, hidden, whatever. They don't want anyone to know about Richard's case because it, in fact, in my opinion, is a code red on steroids. And this arrest on January 27th, that is just like 15 feet in front of this FBI. I think it's like a task force office there, a special task force office there. The FBI have many different offices, but this arrest was like 15 feet from that. And, Richard was lured there. We have confirmation that he was lured there and that he absolutely was set up in that parking lot. There was no justification for the police to go after him, for there to be arrest. It was in a private parking lot. There was no evidence at all. They found no evidence. And what is very interesting, and we're trying to understand, because it seems like files have been tampered with when it comes to Richard's January 27th, 2020 unjustified arrest, because they're not equal. Okay, they're not equal. And there is a lot of refusal by Richard. He was not a happy camper. And so what could he refuse? He could have refused the breathalyzer. If there's all refuse, I'm not happy. Did he refuse the breathalyzer? Because that has always been an area of confusion, and not from me, from Marlon Soto, because Special Agent Marlon Soto could not figure out the whole breathalyzer situation. He could not figure it out. And we had like a couple weeks there, and you can go back and look at the live streams of me talking about how, the special agent in charge does not understand breathalyzers, right? That's really strange, because he was giving us all kinds of numbers. He was unsure about it. He was hesitant about it. He did not know about it. And when we got into the office with that's another story too, with Brigadier General Stewart, David Stewart, he was not briefed. And the breathalyzer issue was also him and Hod. And it is a very, very important issue, because if Richard refused it, that is a big deal. That's a big deal, because Major General Clem Coward, and I'm saying if, because which file is wrong, right? Which file is wrong? Which file has been tampered with? Or, do they not record things properly? What's going on? Because it's very clear that because Richard never pled guilty, he always maintained his innocence, and they dismissed the whole case. And it's very odd that they dismissed the case, because even if a soldier goes missing, even if a person goes missing, they wouldn't dismiss the case. But something is not right, and that means it is unjust, right? They don't know their right hand from their left hand, and if Richard never took a breathalyzer, that would explain why Marlon Soto was just him and hawing for, I think it was a week or 2 weeks before we got the information that we wanted about the breathalyzer. Now, this is another thing that is very, very important to note. A very important aspect of this whole thing with the breathalyzer. The breathalyzer is not admissible in court because those machines are not trustworthy. Their calibration is very touchy, And so they're not admissible in court because, you can calibrate it with a squirt of perfume or, so it it's just they're not reliable. That's the main point. And because they are known to be unreliable, they're not admissible in court. So I have to repeat that a couple times because why in the world that you have a stellar soldier, a whistleblower, okay? Because he's a whistleblower. He's a distinguished honor graduate from basic training. He's a distinguished honor graduate for advanced individual training. He has three AAMs, three AAMs by that time. Okay? He is doing good. He is making rank with waivers. He is doing great. And he is not going to stand by and let criminals that are wearing the uniform smuggle weapons, smuggle ammunition, smuggle equipment, produce child pornography, traffic children, traffic humans. Most of those are always women. Steal people's identities, do fraudulent banking and investments with other people's social security numbers, lend social security numbers to people. How many social security numbers of our service members or our veterans have unknowingly been used for other people? I don't know what extent that Richard knew. I know he had sex tapes. I know that he made CPS complaints. I know that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. I know that the CID was totally involved in this because Richard was a student at Park University. And our intel is telling us that he was an intern with the CID, which connected him with Leilani Hart, which connected him with other suspects, which connected him with Tavita Nusa, which connected him to Marlon Soto, which connected him to Thomas Kane, which connected him to other suspects and more suspects, and which connected him to the VA because of the GOMAR that Major General Clem Coward. So he's in on this. I can tell you that right now. Do you think that he would just give a GOMAR and make it permanent to start chaptering a distinguished honor graduate with 3 AAMs with nothing else, no prior anything? No, this is before all other retaliation, all other unjust retaliation. You think he's going to give a permanent GOMAR to destroy mentally and their whole career, and him not doing any kind of investigation into it, not having a packet? See, that's what Leilani Hart wants, is people to be destroyed without an investigation, without a packet, without notification, without being allowed to defend themselves. That's what Leilani Hart does. She's the harasser. She's the one that makes the false allegations. She's the convicted criminal. And so, did she rub off on Major General Clem Coward? Do they know each other? Absolutely, they know each other. They serve together. So how well do they know each other? This is Richard is coming from Ireland. He's coming from Germany and Ireland, and he joined from South Korea. He is a fish out of a very connected sea at Fort Bliss of a criminal group that are up to no good, and a lot is wrong on Fort Bliss. A lot is wrong. And I don't think he knew the extent, but who am I to say that? Richard was clever. Richard spent a lot of time looking at criminal cases, watching anything about criminal cases that he could watch. I mean, that was what he loved, Sherlock Holmes and oh, all those others that my daughter can rattle off, because they would talk about it together. Um, I know Psych, he liked Psych a lot, um, and Columbo and anything that was who done it, let's solve the case, private investigator. I don't know if he watched CYS or whatever, because in Ireland and Germany we really didn't have any cable TV. We just had a TV, and you had to go and rent out different films or stream it. Streaming it was just kind of getting started. Um, so he really wanted to be a CID agent. He wanted to be law enforcement. And what does Leilani Hart want to be? Law enforcement. What do the other suspects want to be? Law enforcement. They have a connection with the CID. They have a connection with the VA because something's happening over there at the VA that's no good. No good. I mean, we still haven't got a clarification on our intel that Amber Chase is working with James Hart at the VA and the on the medical board to help these soldiers or these veterans get their disability benefits. Sensitive information, sensitive files, healthcare files, their military files. They have access to it, and the CID has access to information. And the IG, who's working in the IG, they have access to files. And who released Richard's mugshot, right? Who released that? Because that would be an illegal act. And yet, voila, there it is. These people are very illegal. They don't have any respect for the law. They don't have any respect for people. They like to steal their identities. They like to badmouth families that don't roll over and say, "Wait a minute," and I don't even want to say it like that because so many families just don't have the time or the means, and this is so time consuming and costs so much. Um, but they don't, and the know-how and the connections. You have to understand, Rob served 30 years in the Army. We have a lot of wonderful family members and very good friends that have been Team Fine Richard Halliday and all over the world. And so I just want to make it very, very clear that to whom God gives a lot, he expects a lot. And he gave us this experience, these connections, the time, and, the means to ask the questions. Ask the questions. What happened to Richard? Where is Richard? And who is responsible for the code red on steroids? The code red on steroids. Okay? And who is responsible? We know who's responsible for the obstruction of justice, the tampering with one of our key witnesses in this case to ban him from accessing Fort Bliss, which is huge because he's an officer of the court. So, and Major General Eisenhower never has reached out to this key witness. Never. Never notified him. Never reached out to him. And by law, he needs to do that. He needs to have his staff reach out. He needed to do that a long time ago. And so, our position now is we need some inspection. We need some investigation of the decisions that the command has made, because of, trying and trying and trying over and over again to get the right thing done. I mean, the right thing would be uh, to notify our key witness, right? That would be the right thing, to give him an opportunity to defend himself. But Fort Bliss needed to do that, and they've never done it. So, which is illegal, and the not notifying him is illegal. So, I wanted to talk about absolutely the setup, because the setup didn't happen on a military base. So Major General Clem Coward could not sanction him with the whatever probable, well, it's unjustified arrest that was happening in a private parking lot. But there's a lot of refusing, and if Richard refused the breathalyzer and then they came back and they said, "Oh no, he did have a breathalyzer," what's going on? And we know from the very beginning that whole breathalyzer was the key, because they were just hemming and hawing on that one. And, that's what they were like. We take underage drinking seriously. It all rested on that breathalyzer. And if Richard refused it and it never happened and they manufactured a breathalyzer, what? And is that why, you know, they said 0.04, like a little gargle with Listerine or something. Um, uh, they gave him one counseling slip for underage drinking for 0.04. And there was so much discrepancy, and I complained about that. My husband and I complained about that, because they just could not, even at 50 days, could not get it right. It was just a botched, unjustified arrest and retaliation, a botched retaliation against a whistleblower. That's what that was. But yet, unjustly and illegally, Major General Clem Coward used that for the GOMAR. And that's why I've always complained about the GOMAR. The GOMAR that was made permanent. It was made permanent. See, when it's permanent, you are done. You are done. You can get a GOMAR, like a reprimand, and then as soon as you move on, you can start afresh. But with a permanent GOMAR, you are done, because you are flagged forever. You have to get out. That's why they started the chaptering. And that's why the chaptering was sanitized and scrubbed from Richard's archive file, because they don't want us to know what's in that chaptering, because the chaptering lasted for months and months, because they were retaliating against him in a code red on steroids. It's just that clear. It's just that clear. Let's see. Yeah, I think I covered everything here. I wrote some notes from the access to the records now that we've been wanting from the very beginning, and we have a right. We have a right to those records. We have a right to the CPS records. We have the right to know what is going on with our son, because he's our son. We are next of kin. He's missing. And at this time, of course, with no sign of him being alive, right? No sign at all. He is presumed murdered. He's presumed murdered. And I say presumed murdered because of all the evidence, because of all the irregularities, the hard evidence, the irregularities, and the circumstantial evidence that we have that scream and point to that he was murdered, and not just murdered. It was a code red. They wanted it to happen, and it was on steroids. They wanted it to happen and then some. Just like this Phil Grade Article 15, this unjustified Phil Grade Article 15, that not only did they give him maximum punishment, but they gave him even more. They gave him the maximum then some. And that's exactly what happened with the Code Red. It wasn't enough. They're that sick. They are that callous. They are that desperate. They had to do a Code Red and then some. And and I hope they get a knock on the door very soon. A knock on the door, and then they'll get some. They'll get some arrested. They'll get handcuffed. And I hope they're facing that little needle. I really do. I really do. And I've never felt this way in my life. But the level of callousness, the disregard for life, the disregard for duty, the disregard for our country, the disregard for all of our service members, for our taxpayers and all of the equipment, the disregard for children, the disregard for the sanctity of marriage. I mean, these people are sick. They're like in sex cults. They're like in sex cults. They have no moral compass at all. Okay? And they're just going to bring chaos and death wherever they go. It's just that plain and clear. After 3 years, it's just that plain and clear. They're going to do us harm. They're going to do more soldiers harm. They're going to do our country harm. If they are left in these positions, very, very powerful positions. Do you understand? I'm not after any private. I'm not even after Belen Rocha, because and she's in on this. She is a participant, maybe a willing participant, maybe an unwilling participant, but she is in on this. And I've tried very hard. But she's up to no good. And if she lured Richard to harm and has not come forward after 3 years, then she is callous too. Then she has no regard for life also. She has no regard for the future that her children will be raised in. She has no regard for our country. She has no regard for, our military. That is what this is. And the same thing with Leilani. Just chaos wherever she goes. And to set up a code red on steroids, and then to cover it up with the chopping of a body and flying, which leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, is this plane. This plane that, we know the plane. This is kind of breaking news, but I broke it already. That was used in our son's case. We know, and y'all, it's just when I absorb it and put my head around it, I'll tell you more about this plane. But I will tell you that it is, I'll just give you some tips. Let's display. I have a display here. Okay, here it is. Here's Biggs. Now that's on Fort Bliss. That's the airport, Biggs. Um, yeah, just to let you know that that is where that is. There is one up here by Red Rio Range, right? Hold on, let me go up here. See if I can find it. Yeah, right here. Okay, so there's Red Rio Range, and there is an airstrip right by Red Rio Range. Oh, yeah, there it is. Very close. Okay, so here it is. This is the area, and here is the airstrip. Okay. There is a lot of benefits if you know how to fly and you have access to a plane, and you can just land right here with evidence and, take it right here. Um, this area right here, right? Okay. Then, of course, there is this area um, that has an airstrip right here. That's Sunland Park, right? The War Eagles Museum. I don't know if people have known that. And then, if this is something I want to ask you about airstrips in Mexico, um, you might not need an airstrip in Mexico. You could just unload whatever your evidence that you have right there in the desert while you're flying. Um, so there is another one out here too by this lake thing, and I'm gonna mark this off um, where these airstrips are. I think it's really important for everyone to see it. I didn't plan to do the Google Earth tonight. I just brought it up because, of course, um, we're going through different records and different suspects, different legal. Um, we have to learn all this because the very people that are supposed to be helping us are doing quite the opposite. So I don't know how to say it any other way, but uh, there is no statute of limitations, so we have the time, and we're just not going to stop until they those that know what they did. They're out there. They know what they did. Until they get a knock on the door, right? Until they get a knock on the door. Those aren't my words. That was another mother. I thought that was pretty good. Um, I heard that from another. Until they get a knock on the door, and they get arrested for what they've done, and yeah. So of course, we have institutional help now with the tracing of communications, tracing of sites, and all of that. Also, we have information coming out of the FAA, and um, and then all of the connections with the Van Buren House, the connections with LDS, the connections with Delta Battery 143. That list is growing. I cannot, and when I release those names, you're going to be like, what? What? No way. No way. Yes, way. The connections of the IG, the connections that are in the CID, the connections that are in the VA, the connections that are in the command JAG, where they try to just, people are out. The chief of what was it, the head guy of FBI, he's out. The Judge Robert Shook, is that Jeff Downey? He's gone. Um, and Judge Robert Shook, he's gone. Um, so these very people that need a knock on the door, they need a knock on the door when it comes to this case. Um, they're conveniently leaving, and that's good for Fort Bliss, but who or in El Paso, but who are they bringing in, and what are they going to do? And I hope the people there better, demand better, because we don't need to be charged taxes when we have inflation at these levels, when we have the prices at the gas tank at these levels for criminal activities. We do not need to be charged taxes to pad a criminal's lifestyle. Okay? And so I hope that the people will demand better, because there's a lot of crime going on with, and this is just harming. I'd rather be poor and live in a just society than rich and live in a criminal syndicate, right? Absolutely. And, people might not know this, but Rob and I, for a while, we had to make a quick decision, and we had to live in an apartment with our 4 children for 5 years, one bedroom, no washer and dryer, no dishwasher. Um, and of course it was in right there in Heidelberg, Germany, which was a real pleasure. And 5 years, and we were happy. You can make it. We just had a bed couch, and then there was this basement room that we fixed up for the girls, and they had to come upstairs. Anyway, but we were happy, and we just kept active, and once a week I'd get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and go over to the washateria and do 11 loads of laundry. Take one of the kids with me. Um, and I could get it all done at one time, early in the morning when nobody wanted to be there. And it was great. It was, you can make it. And when you live in a just society where you don't have to fear being groomed, having the sex cults around you, being robbed by people that want to misuse identities and social security numbers, and you know, traffic children and child porn, um, and take advantage of our military by taking advantage of the taxpayers, giving everything they can to the military. We love our military. We give them everything. And these people, I believe, took advantage of that, and they were selling it out. They were selling it. What a sweet deal. What a sweet deal. Okay, we get all this equipment and everything, and I'm just going to sell it. I can, where do they sell it? I can't do it on eBay because they might get caught, right? But I'll sell it over in Mexico. We're just a hop, skip, and a jump away. And my friend has a plane. We'll just go up to our little training area on Red Rio Range, or go over there to Sunland Park or whatever, and fill up the. I mean, it's what I didn't mean to say that, but it does make sense to me. If you're training up there at Red Rio Range, and you've got your tactical move storage unit, you could just put that on one of your training vehicles full of stuff, and you got the runway right there. How convenient. How convenient. Now, I'm not making any allegations. I'm just thinking out loud here. I am just thinking out loud. And because someone Leilani Hart clearly is up to no good, and she's being protected. Clearly, clearly, she's a harasser. Clearly, she's a convicted criminal. Clearly, with hard evidence. Clearly, um, she claimed to be CID and she was going to Park University, and her husband works at the VA, up to no good, and the family is a mess because let's say everything um, in her notarized criminal complaint affidavit confession, let's say she just did it out of spite. Well, that's one heck of a thing to do out of spite. That's messed up. That is messed up. So, clearly, there is some uh, hatred there for her own family. Clearly, there are some hard feelings. Clearly, there is out of control mental problems there, and she's connected to our son's case. Yeah, that is heartbreaking. That is heartbreaking. So, what else do I want to talk about? Belen. I wanted to talk about Belen. Belen was being protected from the very beginning. And, maybe that's normal, maybe that's not normal. Um, but we've never wanted to harm her. We just wanted to find our son. And we were offering and got that confirmed by the chain of command that anybody with information, even the worst type, to find to find our son, we wanted to give immunity to. So we didn't mean anybody any harm at that time, and we were kept from knowing who she is. And then when we found out, um, they created. I called her up. They didn't like that. They didn't like a private conversation between Belen and me, um, and us. And so they put together a three-way phone call, which was very controlled. They did not give us any time at all. They just called us and said, I have Belen on the phone. Do you want to talk to her? We'll let you talk to her. So they were trying to control everything. And so we did talk to her, and it was, you can imagine, a very strange call. And she couldn't tell us anything about Richard. And I think it's because she was on a three-way phone call. And so for the longest time there, I said, look, she couldn't even say anything. She couldn't even give us a story. She couldn't tell us anything about Richard, his features, anything, nothing. And so we didn't even think she knew him. We thought that was just a setup because she had nothing. And then as time went by, more and more information came out. The truth always comes out. And it was obvious that she does have a connection with him. And I did talk to her mother, Lydia Ortega Rocha, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know anything about Richard. I didn't know he was missing. I didn't know anything." Um, y'all, I don't buy that anymore. I don't buy that anymore. Okay, because yeah. So it's coming full circle with the intel coming out of Fort Bliss. And, I just think that these people that I believe they've been taken advantage of. I believe that the economy, the way our leadership has directed us, they've caused stumbling blocks for people to get into, to say yes to criminal activity where maybe they wouldn't say yes if things were different. Um, and I know, I'm going to hear it from Team Fire and Richard Halliday. Pat, don't be nice. But I can't help it. I do think that uh, the bulk of the blame is much higher up than with the Rochas or, um, any of the unit members. Um, clearly, the unit knows. Clearly, the unit is involved in this. Clearly, they are, and it's even bigger than that because it's a code red on steroids, y'all. And it involves the IG, and it involves the JAG, and it involves a command, and it involves a command, and it involves Park University, and it involves the CPS, and it involves the CID, and the FBI, and the AG, and the DA, and the CPS, and the CB. Sorry, I said CPS twice. Well, I should say 3 times CPS, and then the CBP, and it involves the VA. And did I miss anything? Because it involves so many, because they're up to no good. They've had a sweet deal going on, um, being up to no good and profiting off of it. And they need a knock on the door because they've hurt us. They've hurt Richard. They've hurt every service member that's been there, even those that have been caught up in the criminal activity. They've hurt us. They've hurt us as a country. They've hurt us as a military. They've hurt us as a border city with Mexico, because that means they've hurt Mexico. They've hurt Juarez. Have you been over to Juarez lately? Or go on Google Earth and go look. Their small businesses were just battered during the COVID thing. And I was over there, and I was like, these poor people, their small businesses are destroyed, and so they're on the street, either on drugs, either prostituting themselves, whatever, and how can you not have a little empathy? How can you not have some grace and some mercy? And not. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. And so at the beginning, we were absolutely saying, maybe they were caught up in all of this. But it's been 3 years. It's been 3 years, more than 3 years. And the unit knows, y'all. And Fort Bliss knows. And El Paso knows. There's a lot of people in El Paso that knows. And Mexico knows. And New Mexico, that area there. They know. They know. And the LDS leadership, they know. And the law enforcement, they know. And the governor of Texas, he knows. Okay? He absolutely knows. We're still waiting for any kind of communication from him. And that's unthinkable. Absolutely, people in high places know what happened to Richard. And it's ugly because it's a code red on steroids. There's nothing pretty about that. Go and watch A Few Good Men. And what happened to Richard is far worse. Absolutely. So, because when you have this level of cover-up, this level of denial, this level of obstruction, when you have someone like Leilani Hart wielding power over Fort Bliss, when she is a criminal, she's a convicted criminal. When she has that kind of power and they are just letting her do that. Oh, and then El Paso matters now. Miss Kachurga, Angela Kachurga knows. And the that man, the man that is the attorney, he knows. He absolutely knows. And so, um, we had, we have, um, someone from the inner circles helping us now uh, at the best of their ability. And so pray for that person. That is really very important information. And I have to tell you that because any time I say something online like this, it is security. That's why we're asking for signatures on the petition for the active duty soldier there on Fort Bliss. It's very important for his security, for anybody that's helping him, um, and also to let Veronica Escobar know that it is her duty to push this congressional inquiry forward because there's a lot wrong going on Fort Bliss. She knows it. She knows it. And what's going wrong on Fort Bliss seeps out into El Paso. And those are all her constituents. So she needs to get to the bottom of this. And so every signature on that petition is notifying her that she needs to get this done. And it is strange that it took her, and I think it's kind of appalling, 2 weeks to really try to get this going. Um, yeah, she needs to get this going. So, okay, let me read all your comments. Prayers for answers and justice. Thank you so much, Anicia. Danielle, thank you. Danielle, does Gomar still exist in his file? It does. They did not. They did not sanitize the Gomar. They did the chaptering and they did the Phil Grade Article 15. It doesn't. It's not in there. And so, Rob, has been making inquiries to that. Which can you imagine? With everything else going on, we have to worry about the archive file being scrubbed of our key witness. Don't forget that. Scrubbed of the key witness. Um, and also of the retaliation. And the Gomar is still there, which is a good thing because now we absolutely have confirmed that that is an unjustified arrest, that is an unjustified Gomar, that Major General Clem Coward abused his power against his soldier. And that was an act of retaliation. Yes, it proves retaliation. My sound keeps going away. I'll get out and back in. Okay. Did flying lessons occur before or after Richard's disappearance? Yeah, that's a good question. We'll tell you more as soon as the FAA is giving us information. Anyone that attended the meeting, all 15 agencies should have reports. You would think their task force meeting, and they don't. It's like, oh, we'll just come out of uniform. Oh, we'll just go, and then afterwards we'll go to a party and have Major General Clem Coward or Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz with Thomas Kane give access passes to young party girls. And I know that's a slight, and they deserve it. They deserve it for what they're doing. Because what they have put us through, what is nothing compared to what they put Richard through. Look at his picture on that day, the 27th of January. Really study it. He is angry. He is scared. It's a scared, angry, alone, scared, angry, alone, and what the heck is going on? And he looks very alert. That was a total unjustified setup. It was a setup because he's a whistleblower, which makes this, even worse. Even worse. They should all be in trouble for being an accomplice if they knew and didn't come forward for Richard. Absolutely. And this is where we're not asking or wanting immunity for anyone anymore. Um, maybe they're smart enough to come forward now and plead for their lives because we think the death penalty should be on the table. The level of deceit, the level of organized crime here is just unbelievable. And the level, the hierarchy, the the chain of command being involved in this, because this all could not be look, Leilani could not be doing what she's doing right now unless Major General Eisenhower let her. Okay? And we've been begging for months, but the begging is over with. Okay? The begging is over with. Um, they're not going to. They're going to side with the code red on steroids. That's what they're going to do. They're going to side with the retaliation, the unjustified retaliation, severe and continuous, that led to Richard's murder, that led to the cutting up of his body, that led to the partial remains, that led to the hiding because they did not want another Guillen situation. They didn't want the Guillen situation. They wanted to get away with this crime. This really, what do you, kind of crime do you call it? It's just so bad. Um, it's just so bad. And they want to get away with it. And they have people in very high places that wanted it to happen because, oh, well, 5% for you and 10% for that person and 50% for me. 50% for me. Um, it's just despicable. It really is. And if it's happening in the highest office, it's happening um, in our military and it's happening, um, in our state governments and it's happening. It's just that, you have to have leaders that demand oversight, that demand accountability, that demand morality. You have to have it. And there's always been this debate, can you legislate morality? And I think that we're seeing that we better legislate morality or we are going to live in a criminal slave camp. Um, they're just you're a crime or you're a criminal or you're going to be a slave. I mean that's the way I see it because they're going to uh, steal and steal and steal and steal and devalue our money and inflation is going to skyrocket and they're going to prices are going to go way up because of all the theft. I just witnessed, this is a first-hand witness of a theft in a Dillard's. I was there with my family and all of a sudden this guy just walks in. He goes over to the Coach bags. He puts 10 on one arm, 10 on the other arm, and then he starts running. And anybody in his way, anything in his way, he didn't care because he wanted those Coach bags so he can go and sell them in the black market. And, I mean, we had my grandbabies with praise God there was a counter in between, because, he could have hurt somebody. He was a madman running out, and everyone was screaming. It was so scary. And that was just the theft of Coach bags. Can you imagine the theft of children? Can you imagine the theft of ammunition? The theft of guns? The theft of, military equipment? The theft of humans? Um, you know, it's just, unthinkable. And that's why so many, with Leilani, the judge, when she was convicted and she pled guilty. She pled guilty. Richard never pled guilty for anything. But she pled guilty, and she's a convicted criminal. And the judge was like, and plus, you need a mental evaluation. You need a that's not normal for a judge to say you need a mental evaluation. But that was years ago in Hawaii. And what's going on? What's going on? Um, and how did she join? I mean, she was active duty. She was active duty there. And the people she was harassing were military, active duty soldiers and other service members. And so, yeah, that tells you a lot right there. Just bringing down Schofield Barracks, I think that's what it's called. Um, just, bringing it to its knees as far as quality of life. No quality of life when Leilani Hart is around you. You have to protect your children. You have to protect yourself. If you want to go out to the mailbox, you have to get a camera on you because, you might be uh, alleged to have done something. Um, yeah, and Major General Eisenhower's protecting her because his raider is Beelzebub's brother, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. Um, and I'm being kind. I'm being kind. And he's a commanding general, not only of, whatever, the big old corps or whatever, but of Fort Hood, Fort Cavazos, and yeah, and the IG. Don't forget IG. We have Lieutenant General Donna Martin up there, who was in charge of CID. She should have been stripped of her stars, of her uniform, absolutely court-martialed, stripped, and so should Sean Bernabe, totally stripped for the betrayal of their offices, of all of the gifts that we have given them. We have given them so much, everything they want, we give them, and they betrayed us. It's really something that we need to address. We can't stand still and let this continue to happen because more and more people are going to get hurt, and our country is suffering and will suffer more because of leaders like this that should not be in leadership roles. And the same thing with government employees that are given their position because they know someone or they have their 10-point advantage with their disability. And I'm sorry, this is nothing against disabled veterans. This is against the fraud of coaching people that are perfectly healthy into becoming a disabled veteran, getting those benefits, and then taking the jobs of true disabled veterans, right? So this is, this is so convoluted, and if you've been following the story, you know what I mean. So, okay, everyone. Um, Thank you so much for joining, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. So please, if you have not signed the petition for the active duty Fort Bliss soldier that is requesting a congressional inquiry, please do that. Do not hesitate. And do not hesitate to share that and to get some more signatures. I think we're over 170 signatures now, which is wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's double it. Let's double it. You know me. Um, we need to protect this soldier. We need to be a hedge around him. We need to let Veronica Escobar and Senator Ted Cruz, who was copied on that inquiry, let them know that this is serious, that we are serious, that something is not right on Fort Bliss and in Richard's case, and with the crime that's in the JAG office. That's in the JAG office. So thank you so much, and don't forget Judge Robert Shook. He's gone. He's gone. Don't forget that. That's not right. That's that's not right. So God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.